Disclaimer asterisk: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The clock on the wall ticked louder than it should have. Maybe because the room had gone so still, the kind of stillness that makes every breath feel heavier, every glance last longer than it should. Zayn leaned against the doorway, half in shadow, watching her as she poured wine into two mismatched glasses. The dim lamp behind Aisha painted her in gold, soft around the edges, the kind of light that makes you forget what's appropriate. She looked up once, meeting his eyes. "You're awfully quiet tonight," she said, her tone light but her mouth betraying something else. A curve, half a smile, half a test. He swallowed, pretending to laugh. "Just didn't think you'd actually say yes to dinner." She shrugged, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Slow, deliberate. "You asked," she said simply. The air between them stretched, thick and warm, scented faintly with coffee and rain from the open window. When she handed him the glass, their fingers brushed. It wasn't an accident. Or maybe it was, but neither of them pulled away. For a moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the soft tap of raindrops against the window pane, and the uneven rhythm of their breathing. Then she broke it, quietly like a dare. "It's getting late," she murmured, her voice low, eyes flicking toward the storm outside. He smiled, nervous, uncertain, but something in him wanted to see how far the moment could stretch. "You could stay over," he joked, too quickly, like tossing a pebble into deep water. A pause. A long one. She turned her face toward him fully now, eyes sharp but amused, and for the first time that night, she didn't look away. Her lips curved into that knowing smirk he'd seen once before, back when she was his teacher years ago. "You might regret that tomorrow," she said softly, almost like a warning. But her voice didn't sound like she meant it. The rain grew harder outside. A flash of thunder lit the room, and neither of them moved. And for a heartbeat, maybe two, Zayn wondered if she'd stay just to see if he really would. The rain outside had turned to a steady rhythm, soft but insistent, like it wanted to be part of what was happening in the quiet of that small living room. Aisha moved closer to the window, pretending to watch the storm. Her reflection shimmered faintly on the glass, graceful, distant, unreadable. Zayn stayed where he was, still holding his glass, pretending not to notice the way her breathing had slowed. "Do you still write?" she asked suddenly, voice just above a whisper. "Sometimes," he said, "when I can't sleep." She turned slightly, the corner of her mouth lifting. "That used to be me. Too many words in my head." He almost laughed, but the sound caught in his throat. The air between them had changed again. He set the glass down on the table, careful not to break whatever fragile balance held the night together. When he stepped closer, it wasn't deliberate. Not really. Just enough to feel the faint warmth radiating from her shoulder. The scent of her perfume, something soft, familiar, filled the space between them. "Still raining?" she murmured, her voice barely more than breath. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Doesn't look like it's stopping." Tiny pause. She glanced sideways at him, eyes darker now, her expression unreadable. He noticed her hand resting near the edge of the curtain, fingers brushing the fabric, and without thinking, his hand moved too, reaching to pull it back. His knuckles grazed hers. Neither of them moved. Her lips parted just slightly, a tiny intake of breath almost invisible. The silence stretched. Zayn cleared his throat, stepping back half an inch. Not because he wanted to, but because it felt safer. "I should probably head out soon," he said softly. She didn't answer, just turned toward him, slow, deliberate. "If you go now," she said, "you'll be drenched before you reach the corner." He hesitated, the kind of hesitation that isn't really indecision, more like permission waiting to be spoken. Their eyes met again, too long, too open. And in that moment, between thunder, between breath, something invisible shifted. A line they'd both pretended not to see now lay right in front of them. The storm hadn't moved on. It only grew louder. Each burst of thunder echoed through the room like an unspoken thought neither dared to say. Zayn stood a few feet away, watching her silhouette flicker in the lightning. Aisha's hair had come loose, strands clinging to her cheek. She pushed them back absently, her fingers trembling in the half-light. "You should sit," she said quietly, nodding toward the couch. Her tone was gentle, but something inside it trembled. An undercurrent he couldn't name. He sat. She stayed standing, then slowly crossed the room to join him. The space between them was small now, close enough for him to hear the soft hitch of her breath, close enough that every heartbeat seemed shared. For a long moment they didn't speak. Only the ticking clock and the rain filled the silence. "You've grown quieter," she said finally. "Maybe I learned it from you," he replied, half smiling. Her eyes lingered on him. "You were never good at hiding what you felt." He wanted to answer, but words felt too heavy. Instead, his gaze drifted, her hand resting on her knee, the faint shimmer of light on her wristwatch, the curve of her shoulder against the lamplight. Everything about her felt like a memory coming back to life. Aisha shifted, turning slightly toward him. The movement was small but magnetic. The fabric of her sleeve brushed his arm. Neither moved away this time. Something in her eyes softened. A mix of fear and something dangerously close to invitation. "This isn't," she started, then stopped. The words hung there, unfinished. Zayn nodded, understanding without needing the rest. "I know." But neither of them stood. The next thunderclap rattled the window, and in its wake, the quiet seemed louder. Every breath they took felt shared, suspended in the same uncertain air. They weren't touching, not yet, but the space between them felt alive, trembling, like one more heartbeat could decide which way the night would go. And just when it seemed the moment might break, Aisha looked away, saving them both, for now. The story would not end tonight, but something inside it had already begun. The air in the room had changed. It was no longer simply quiet. It was charged, as though every sound, every breath, was amplified by something neither of them dared name. Aisha stood now, restless, pretending to tidy the books scattered on the table. Her fingers moved too fast, betraying nerves she couldn't hide. Zayn watched her silently, his pulse heavy in his throat. "You're shaking," he said softly. She froze, then laughed under her breath. "It's cold," she replied, though the room was warm. He rose from the couch, slowly, giving her time to step back if she wanted. She didn't. The lamp light caught the edge of her face. Tired, beautiful, and full of questions she'd never said aloud. "Aisha," he began, but the name itself seemed too intimate. She turned toward him, eyes bright and uncertain. "Don't," she whispered, though her voice didn't sound convinced. Lightning flashed again, washing the room in white. When it faded, she was closer. Neither of them remembered who moved first. The scent of rain and coffee clung to their clothes, heavy, real. He reached to take the book from her hand, fingers brushing hers again, this time lingering. The simple contact felt like a current. Her breath caught, a small sound she didn't mean to make. The book slipped from her grasp and hit the carpet with a soft thud. Neither of them looked down. Every inch of space between them had disappeared. "Tell me to leave," he said, his voice lower now, steadier than he felt. She looked up at him, searching his face as if the answer might change everything. Her lips parted, but no words came out, only the smallest shake of her head. Outside, thunder rolled closer, deep, endless. He could see the rise and fall of her chest, hear the tremor in her breath. Every second stretched thin, ready to break. Aisha took a step back, but her hand brushed his arm on the way, barely, fleeting, enough to undo him completely. The lamp flickered once, throwing them into half-darkness. Neither spoke, neither moved again. The storm outside raged on, but the real one, silent, dangerous, had already filled the room. And somewhere between restraint and surrender, the night held its breath. The silence shattered with a sharp knock. Aisha flinched. Zayn stepped back instinctively, the world snapping back into focus. Another knock, louder this time, echoed through the narrow hallway. She looked at him, eyes wide, breath uneven. Who? Before he could answer, her phone buzzed on the table. A name flashed across the screen. Cameron. Zane frowned. He'd heard that name once, her ex-husband. The one who'd moved abroad. Aisha's hand hovered over the phone, not answering. The ringing filled the room like an alarm neither could silence. Then it stopped. The quiet afterward was unbearable. She exhaled slowly, pressing her fingers to her temple. He never calls this late. Zane's voice was low. Maybe you should. But she shook her head. No, her tone was sharp, final. She walked toward the window, staring out into the rain as if it could hide her confusion. Zane followed a few steps, uncertain. The storm outside had thickened. The streetlights blurred behind sheets of water. Her reflection in the glass looked older, smaller, but her eyes, those eyes were alive with something raw. I thought I'd stopped feeling this way, she murmured, not looking at him. He hesitated. Feeling what way? Like I'm about to ruin something again. She turned then, her expression fierce, almost defiant. You shouldn't have come. You asked me to stay. I didn't mean it. He gave a faint smile. Then why didn't you stop me? She stared at him, silence, heat, the same impossible pull. Her voice softened, trembling at the edges. Because I wanted to know if you would. The words hit like thunder. Neither moved. The phone buzzed again. This time, a message. Zane saw her glance down. The screen lit her face. I'm outside. Her pulse visibly jumped. She whispered, He's here. Zane blinked. What? Before either could react, another knock, this one insistent, almost angry. The front gate creaked in the wind. Aisha's breathing quickened. He wasn't supposed to come back till next week. For a heartbeat, they stood frozen, caught between the door and everything that could no longer be said. Go, she whispered urgently, gesturing toward the back door. Now. Zane didn't move. His eyes searched hers. Do you want me to? She swallowed hard. The rain outside crashed against the glass, drowning her hesitation. Yes, she said finally. But her voice betrayed her. He understood. The space between them, heavy with what almost happened, pulsed with something that wouldn't fade. Another knock, louder. Zane grabbed his coat, heading toward the kitchen door. Just before stepping out, he turned. She stood there, motionless, her hand on her chest, eyes locked on him. Neither spoke. Then he was gone, swallowed by the storm. Aisha stood alone in the dim light, listening to the echo of her heartbeat against the door. The sound of a choice that had already been made. And when she finally opened the front door, she wasn't sure which part of the storm had followed her inside. The storm had thinned by morning, leaving the world pale and heavy with mist. Aisha hadn't slept. The night replayed itself in fragments. Zane's voice, the knocks at the door, her own trembling hands. When she finally stepped outside, the sky was a dull gray, the streets slick with puddles. A black car idled near the curb, Cameron's. But there was no one inside. The seat was empty, door half open. Her stomach tightened. She turned, half expecting him to appear from the shadows, half fearing what she'd say if he did. Then she saw Zane, standing under the awning of the small bookshop across the street, drenched, eyes fixed on her. For a second, she couldn't move. The air between them felt electric again, but this time it wasn't about attraction. It was something heavier. You shouldn't have come back, she said when she crossed over, her voice a whisper. I couldn't just disappear, he replied. Not after what almost happened. She stared at him, rain dripping from her hair. You think it was nothing? He shook his head. I think it was everything, and that's the problem. The words hung between them. Aisha's eyes glistened, not from the rain. You're young, she said softly. You'll forget me. I already tried, he said. Didn't work. A car door slammed nearby. They both turned. Cameron stood a few feet away, his expression unreadable. His gaze moved from her to Zane, then back again. So, Cameron said quietly, it's him. Aisha froze. The truth, unspoken for years, now lay bare in the open air. Zane's fists tightened at his sides. ready to defend something he couldn't even name. But Cameron didn't shout. He simply sighed, a long, tired sound, and handed her a small brown envelope. "You forgot these," he said. When she opened it, a divorce decree stared back. Signed. Dated. Yesterday. Her breath caught. "You?" "I came to say goodbye," Cameron said. "Not to fight." He walked away before she could answer, disappearing into the thinning rain. Zane looked at her, unsure whether to speak. She just smiled faintly, eyes wet, voice almost gone. Looks like the storm wasn't outside after all. And as the first week's sunlight cut through the clouds, Aisha realized. The thing she'd been afraid of losing was already gone. But something new, fragile and uncertain, had just begun. The next morning, the city seemed washed clean. Pigeons pecked at puddles along the curb, and the air still carried the faint chill of the night before. Aisha sat by the window, fingers wrapped around a cup of black coffee gone cold. The apartment looked the same, yet nothing about it felt familiar anymore. On the table lay the envelope Cameron had left, a small, silent symbol of an ending. But beside it, on the chair where Zane had sat, his scarf remained, damp and forgotten. She stared at it for a long time. Every rule she'd built for herself, every quiet boundary, had cracked open over one rain-soaked night. And in the quiet aftermath, she couldn't tell whether she felt freed or frightened by it. A knock sounded at the door. Not hurried this time, but gentle. When she opened it, Zane stood there, dry clothes, tired eyes, an awkward half-smile that carried the same weight as the storm before. "I came to return something," he said, holding out a small notebook. She recognized it, her old journal from years ago, one she thought she'd lost in the move. "Where did you?" "You lent it to me once," he said. "I kept it longer than I should have." Their hands brushed as she took it. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she said, "You could have left it downstairs." He nodded. "I could have." The air between them shifted again. Quieter now, but alive, pulsing with something they both understood wouldn't fade easily. Aisha looked away first, her voice softer. "Some storms don't end when the rain stops." Zane smiled faintly. "Some people don't either." They stood there for a breath longer. Not crossing the line this time, just standing close enough to feel the memory of it. When he finally turned to leave, she didn't stop him. She simply watched, the kind of watching that says not yet, but maybe someday. And as the door closed behind him, her reflection in the window smiled. Faint, knowing, and unafraid. The fire wasn't gone. It had just learned how to live quietly.